Hey everybody, Mo here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys the current tier list for all of the champions in the League of Legends game mode Swarm. This is PBE. This is not live yet. There's about 2 weeks left of PBE, so what I'll do is I'm going to post to you guys this tier list right here, telling you what I think the strongest champions are, and then I will be going over right before it launches what I think the strongest champions are on the current patch, or what it should look like going into live mode for you guys. So hope you guys are enjoying the Swarm content between this and the ultimate guide to Swarm and all the things you need to know. I hope it's enough for you guys. I'm trying to pump out as much as I possibly can for you all. I've just literally set my computer up today. You can still see all the boxes behind me from moving. I just settled into a new place, so trying to get as much out as I can now that I have my desk and computer and everything set up for you guys. So that's it. Let's jump right into it. So I'm going to kind of categorize it into two different tier lists. I'm going to do the damage tier list, and then I'm going to do the tank tier list, and then I'll do kind of just an overall tier list for you guys. So for first off, let's go ahead and get the tanks out of the way. There are 3 people I would categorize as tanks, really kind of 2.5 in a sense, but we're gonna say 3 kind of just to make it so there's more tanks. I'll actually gonna put Riven up here also. So the people I call tanks are going to be Leona, Alawi, and then your kind of half tanks are going to be Riven and Briar. Even though Briar is damage and she does a lot of damage, I personally think the best build for her right now is like 2 tank items, 1 utility item, 1 damage item. Or sorry, yeah, with the weapons anyways. So I think that's actually her best build, and some of her best stat buffs are actually tank stat buffs because she has so much damage already that making sure she can sustain through that damage and through her frenzy state is really important. So that's, with that being said, let's start just from left to right. Leona, I think, is A tier. I think Leona is the best kind of new player support. She's definitely the easiest champion in general in this entire game, which automatically will make her a little bit higher on my tier list because it's really easy for anyone to kind of just pick up Leona and do well. Remember from my first quite a few games, probably my first couple hours playing with my group of friends, I had this friend who unlocked Leona, and he kind of just only played Leona, and it didn't matter who I was playing, he was doing like 3, 4, almost 5 times as much damage as me. And this is when we both just started, so neither of us really had a whole bunch of unlocks. If anything, I actually upgraded my damaging path with my buffs, and he upgraded his health and tanky path, and he was still out damaging me by like 4 or 5x. And that's when I was playing Jinx and I played Seraphine. It didn't matter when I played Briar, even there was a point where I remember I had like 5 or so more hours in the game than he did, and he was still doing more damage on Leona than I was with Briar. And that, of course, I'm sure I wasn't playing perfect or anything, but point aside, I think Leona is very, very strong. She's very easy to get down. You can kind of just click your shield button if you're ever in any trouble and run into mobs. If you're playing with some new players also, your new friends, it's really easy for them to kind of understand how your champion works also. You can just say, hey, I'm a tank, follow me, we're going to make it to this checkpoint, we're going to make it to this trial, whatever it is, and you're just going to click your big shieldy button, run in front of them, and they'll just have to follow behind you while you tank and explode everything. And then hopefully, they at the very least have auto aim on, can deal with some of those mobs themselves also. And it's really easy just visually to understand also. There's not a whole lot going on. After that, we have Alawi, and Alawi is going to be S tier. I actually think Alawi is the best tank in the game. I actually think she's like, we'll get into this in the later tier list, but she's really, really, really high on the overall tier list also. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. You kind of just build the Circle of Death build on Alawi. I think Circle of Protection is one of the most OP builds in general. Like, you can build Circle of Protection build on anybody and just out DPS the whole lobby. For those of you that don't know what Circle of Protection build is, it is the Razor Blades AoE mixed with the it's Razor Blades AoE mixed with Radiant Field AoE. And once you get both of those evolved, the minions they just can't come near you, period. With Alawi, it's even better because you're going to spawn tentacles around you, which both heal your allies and gives you more range. So you're both a melee champion with really decent range threat, like a threat range because of your tentacles. And then once you get the Circle of Protection build, I mean, I have a video coming out, if not out already, where I matchmaking on hard mode. I queue in with 3 random people. I play, my full tank Alawi build, no damaging ability, or sorry, no damaging at all. Like, I don't take damage buffs or anything crazy like that. The only like true damage thing I take is Uwu Blaster, just because that's beyond broken, as you guys saw in the weapons tier list. And I did, I think, like 30, I did over 10 million more damage than the second highest person in my lobby. And it was like Aurora, Yasuo, and then me on Alawi. And I just did the most damage by like 10 million plus. So Alawi, insanely strong. Her tentacle is giving her so much health regen, but not just her, also her teammates. It's another one where it's really easy to carry lobbies with Alawi once you get your circle of protection set up and everything evolved. You can literally just tell your teammates to stand on top of you if they're having a hard time surviving, if they don't have a good build, and maybe if they're a little bit new, if you're playing on really hard difficulty or hard map, and they're getting kind of lost or getting downed a whole lot. Just ping your body or type in chat, just say stand on me, circle of protection, and they can stand on top of you or inside your circle of protection, and they will just never die. And it's very, very simple to pull off once you understand the build path. It's really easy. There's a lot of flexibility for your third and fourth option also. I personally take Uwu Blaster just because I think Uwu Blaster is beyond broken. It gives you consistent DPS, especially early. And then that last slot can really be anything you want. If you want damage or get a good damage, you can do that. If you want to run the train, you can take the train, Tibbers, really just about anything for you. After that, we have Riven. Riven, I'm going to put in B tier, mostly because she's a little bit difficult to play. Her early game isn't very strong, but once you do get a decent amount of cooldown on her and you get damage buffs, you can start doing a whole lot of stuff once you get a lot of attack speed. There's a lot of really good Yuumi buffs that you can get onto Riven, and anytime you get them as Fortune Boon that increases your size, or if you can increase your ability sizes at all, Riven gets really, 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 really good. With all of that being said, she's a little bit difficult. She's not the tankiest. Her starting HP is lower than Alawi's. Her shield that she gets from going in isn't very high. She does get a pretty decent shield once you get big enough to where you just have your ult and you can run around and you do a whole bunch of damage and you just kind of one-shot everything, and you have a gazillion and 1 movement speed from a Yuumi boon. I really like the one that gives you 15% move speed and then 5%, or is it 3% on every level up. That's really good because by the time the end game comes around, you're just so fast. You get to zoom around the map on Riven and just start clearing paths for your whole team to follow you. She's pretty alright. The only issue is just compared to the other two, she's just not nearly as good. She doesn't bring as much. She's kind of more of a hybrid where she'll deal a little bit more damage than your Leona, but she won't tank as much. So if you're with a crew that is really good at keeping themselves alive, Riven is perfectly fine and pretty decent. If you're with a crew that needs like a traditional tank, that needs someone that they can follow, that can just pull aggro and tank a whole lot for them, Riven's probably not the answer. And the last one we're going to put in the tank category is going to be Briar. And Briar is on the same path as Riven, except it's slightly better in my opinion, because Briar is just slightly easier to play. I think Briar, when built correctly, is easily B tier, if not like an A- tier, like better than Riven, but just barely worse than Leona. And that type of build is going to consist of something like max HP, max damage, max crit, max ability haste. Anything that you can do to increase Briar's size also, so that way your swipes get really big, is really, really strong. So with that being said, I think a lot of people don't really build Briar correctly. I've seen a lot of people build either full tank Briar and then you just miss out on a whole lot of damage, or I've seen people build full damage Briar and then you kind of just die as soon as you click your frenzy button, because cool, you do a lot of damage, but you can't really use that effective health, your effective health from the lifesteal, when you're just dying a whole lot. So I think once she's built correctly and has the right, Yuumi buffs and passives, then she's really, really strong. So this is what the tank looks like right here. After this, we're going to go into the damage characters, and then I'm going to do an overall tier list of kind of what to expect if you're trying to carry your matchmaking games. I'm going to do that for you also. So let's just move these to the side here. We do this all in one take, nice and easy. So Aurora, we're going to put in B tier. Aurora is very middle of the pack. Nothing about her is special. She's actually extremely difficult to play with not the greatest payoff. Her ultimate is kind of lackluster. It's really funny in some scenarios where you can just sit there and jump back and forth, do a bunch of AoEs, but for the most part, she doesn't really contribute a lot to the team. She has really good wave clearing if you can utilize her kit correctly, but she's so squishy, and the fact that she makes you take XP, that if you don't get XP, it's kind of awkward, but you have to take XP to evolve her auto attack. But if you don't get XP until like the mid game, taking XP feels really bad. So there's just a lot of things that go right for Aurora. Her wave clear is really good. Her DPS is really, really good. But there's lots of going against her where she's really squishy. She's hard if she gets backed into a corner. Her actual damage from her singular auto attacks aren't high because you're supposed to use things like stack them up and then hit a whole bunch of things at once, and every 3 autos you kind of just explode things. So really middle of the pack. There's really good benchmark. If you're really good Aurora, you'll do better than some of the A tier champions. If you're not good on Aurora, you'll do worse than, you know, the worst champion in the game. Speaking of the worst champion in the game, we have Jinx, which is a very solid D tier. If there is an F tier, you know, there is an F tier now. I've created an F tier. Just straight to F tier for you, ma'am. F tier for the Jinx. Jinx is just beyond bad. I understand that she's the kind of start to learn to play the game champion, but her passive isn't very good. Her DPS is not very good. The best thing about her is that she forces you to take ability haste, which is just kind of one of the best passive stats you can take. Outside of that, you really just need your weapons to do everything for you. She is not very good at all. The fact that you can build full AD or full attack damage Jinx, like the most damaging DPS build you could possibly get between weapons and passives, and still just do like a quarter of a Leona's damage, is just kind of pathetic. I really hope she gets buffed. I understand if they don't want to make her too strong because she is the starting champion or one of the 2 starting champions. But with that being said, the only really good thing about Jinx is her ultimate. Her ultimate deals an incredible amount of damage. With that being said, it's her ultimate, so it's not like it has the shortest cooldown. You're really only supposed to use it for like bosses and stuff like that. So she doesn't contribute a lot to the team. Her DPS is by far the worst out of any of the damages and lower than every other tank in the game. Jinx is just really bad. Next, we have Seraphine. Seraphine is a very solid A tier. She's really good. Projectile builds right now in general are very strong. So getting your plus projectiles is really good once you upgrade your projectiles and start the game with +2 projectiles. Obviously getting 3 times the auto attack with the Seraphine is very, very good. With that, her ult, one of the best in the game, especially if you're doing matchmaking. You guys are doing a Bel'Veth trial where you have to survive the circle. You're in the Aatrox fights, when in the final Aatrox fights, having a Seraphine ult is insane. If you can have 2 Seraphines on your team where you guys can kind of stack your ults so that way you're immune to all the Aatrox arrows, the Aatrox knockups, the Aatrox AoEs, you really should not have an issue against Aatrox at all. With that being said, she's not really S tier because her damage isn't the highest it could be, but her damage is still pretty good. Her damage is better than Aurora's consistently. She's a lot easier to play than Aurora. She's really easy to pick up and play. She's one of the 2 starting champions. I mean, your ability just gives you guys a big shield, and it's really cool. Her ultimate just makes you all immune and then stuns, which is really cool. Very easy to play, very straightforward, and doesn't leave a lot to be desired outside of just not the highest DPS compared to the other 2 champions that we have on this list. Speaking of, we now have Xayah, which Xayah I'm going to put in front of Seraphine. I'm going to put, actually, you know, we're going to make like an A. Can we make a new one here? Add row below. We're going to make an A- tier, or A+ tier, sorry. So just strictly better than Seraphine and just slightly worse than Yasuo. I think if Yasuo just gets nerfed in like the slightest bit, I think Xayah will probably take over. Xayah's E does way too much damage, is on way too short of a cooldown. I've been experimenting a lot with Xayah. I've been playing a lot of Xayah. She's like my 2nd favorite champion right now behind Alawi. And she does a lot. She does a lot. She's one of the few champions where you can kind of leave auto aim on. So she's really new player friendly if you have an issue with losing track of your mouse or there's just too much going on. She's one of the few champions where you can just leave auto aim on and it not hinder you at all. You just have to kind of know when to turn auto aim off, shoot in a straight line, kite something to follow you, use your E. 3 seconds later, use your E, like same plan, use your E again, and you can kill any boss, any mini boss. You can clear big waves with your ultimate. The only thing that Yasuo really has over her is Yasuo's upgraded tornadoes is kind of just the best ability in the entire game right now. And also Yasuo gets an iframe and a shield and then gets 3 charges of it for some reason. Xayah doesn't really have the self-protection that Yasuo has or Seraphine has, or, you know, Alawi has. She doesn't really have self-protection, which makes sense. She's supposed to be, you know, this damaging character. I understand if they don't want damaging characters to have, you know, a whole bunch of self-protection. Cough, cough, you know, 3 iframes plus a wind wall. But I think she's definitely the best balanced damage dealer by a mile. She's just slightly worse than Yasuo because Yasuo's kind of just broken. And with that being said, of course, we have Yasuo in the S tier. If you've played any amount of Yasuo or seen any amount of Yasuo, you understand why. Starting a game with 3 tornadoes already kind of crazy. The fact that your tornadoes can reset off of crits means that starting at level 1 with crit chance, if you're fighting a big wave of people, your auto attack already is resetting itself, and it's kind of like you have a whole bunch of ability haste when you really don't, because you can kind of get lucky with your crit chance and just kind of have free ability haste for no reason starting at level 1, while also being able to hit and like a triangle around you, so you're hitting both in front of you and behind you and to your side for some reason. And then God forbid your very first upgrade is actually Steel Tempest. In that case, you get 2 more tornadoes, so you start the game with 5 tornadoes around you, and it's just like not fair. If you ever get in trouble with Yasuo, you have 3 iframes that also give you a ginormous shield. You get a ginormous wind wall, and it's not like the size of the wind wall blocks off entire lanes and pathways in a lot of the maps, which is kind of crazy. Stops one of the bosses or a couple of the bosses sometimes from coming at you, stops all the mini bosses from coming at you, stops all the mini boss projectiles from coming at you. It's just really not fair. It stops the entirety of the Aatrox arrows from coming at you when you're fighting the Aatrox boss. So if you have 2, yeah, same thing with Aurora, where with Seraphine, where if you have 2 Seraphines, you can stack their ults. It gets really easy to defeat the Aatrox boss. Same thing with Yasuo's. You guys can queue up 3 or 4 Yasuo's, just wind wall in a box around the Aatrox. You guys aren't gonna be worried about the arrows for a minute, and then you just run at the Aatrox and kill him before your wind walls even go down. And it gets really ridiculous really quickly. There's just nothing really balanced about this champion. He has the DPS, he has the survivability, he has the self-peel in a way. He's just kind of insane. So with that being said, we are now going to just quickly add the last champions in here, do an overall tier list, and that's going to look something like this real quick. Like, it's going to go Alawi right above, right behind Xayah. I think because she's the best tank in the game by far, Alawi's actually could just be slightly above Xayah. I think I could agree with that because of the amount of self-sustain she has. She can still do a lot of damage with all of her tentacles. You get the upgraded huge tentacles. Your ult, if you're ever in trouble, does a lot of damage, while also heals you like 30 health a second and heals all your team for a whole lot of health a second. Really, really crazy. Next, we have Leona is going to be in the A tier, right behind Seraphine. Both really easy champions to play, both really solid. Next, we're going to have both Riven and Briar in the B tier. I'm actually going to put Riven slightly ahead of Aurora. I will put Aurora in front of Briar just because I think a lot of people aren't playing Briar right. And then Jinx, of course, all the way down in Z tier, as where she belongs. So this is the current tier list right now of Swarm. This is the overall tier list. I broke it down for you guys, so hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know if you don't agree with some of this, or if you feel like some champions in here belong higher or lower, if you've had success with something else that other people haven't seen and you're thinking that's why it's really high. For example, if maybe full tanks Jinx is the way and just no one's tried it, let me know down in the comments below. But this is the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Can't wait to make more. I hope you guys are enjoying the Swarm content. I'll see you in the next video.